I'm speaking with Craig Brooke, Managing Director, KeyInvest. First of all, Craig, thank you very much for participating in the Inside Network's Income and Defensive Assets Symposium.
Pleasure as always, and it was great getting into that debate with everyone today.
Craig, what makes private credit an attractive proposition in a higher interest rate environment?
I think there's a lot of questions that come up from advisors and wealth managers around that, but the reality is it's where it sits in a particular portfolio. I'm not sure it's a higher rate environment at the moment, and it's certainly heading down, but it certainly provides a hedge whenever interest rates are moving against the volatility that does come from many asset classes.
Craig, how do you evaluate and manage borrower quality in private credit markets?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. So there's two things that matter the most. We apply about 16 different lenses. The first one is, does the borrower have a credible exit from the manager that's facilitating this particular transaction? So in other words, is there a first way out? Is there a second way out? And what other means do they have from an asset base to exit the position at the term when it comes up? The second thing we think about in terms of the underlying borrowers is their experience. Have they done this before? If the underlying borrower or sponsor is doing this for the first time with a private credit manager, that's for someone else. That's not for us.
What safeguards do you use to manage liquidity risk?
Often the safeguards, so the underlying managers that we use from an investment perspective at the moment, we're generally on terms, and the terms do exist out there with a monthly liquidity scenario, but how we think about our portfolio and our investor portfolio for our 50,000 members is we absolutely mix types of credit. So public market credit, daily liquidity, private credit, where we might have a monthly or sometimes even an annual liquidity. However, the investors that we're managing money for at the moment and the underlying investors are investors in particular funds where there's a really long tenure, sometimes between 10 and 22 years.
How might advisors think about balancing private and public credit markets allocations?
Give me a call if you like. Happy to talk about it. But the reality is, I don't know if that's a trick question or not, but the reality is the investor risk profile is where the advisor's starting. And once they understand the risk profile, have undertaken the needs analysis, then that balance starts to come up. But it's again, where does it fit in terms of the profile and how are you allocating as the advisor?
What are some of the emerging trends that you're seeing in the Australian private credit market? You've done a lot of work on it.
We've researched September 22. There were 308 managers that we started with when we started a particular piece of work. It took 6 of us 2 years. The most and the biggest emerging trend we're seeing at the moment is this question that's coming up: is there a bubble? We don't think there is. The reality is, from a commercial lending perspective, it still only represents around 10% of all commercial property type lending in Australia. And when I say commercial, I mean commercial borrower, but the underlying property at times can be certainly residential and they're standing up a whole street and a whole estate. But the number of managers coming up is fascinating. When I talk to advisors often at the moment, the question or the comment that I get is, I've just finished lunch and I've got 3 missed calls from new private credit managers. So there is a bubble emerging of the number of managers, but in terms of the trend, it's still only about 10% on an overall basis. Go and look in the US, really mature offshore markets, it's about 80% compared to the mainstream banks as well. So my view, our view, we still think there's a long way to go.
Craig Brooke, Managing Director of KeyInvest, thank you very much for your time today.
Pleasure. Thank you.